There is an excerpt from a poem from a book called The Wealth for All Africans, How Every African Can Live a Life of Their Dreams, that says, most people write me off when they see me. They do not know my story. They say I am just an African. They judge me before they get to know me. There is a generation of Africans and Africans from the diaspora who are changing the narrative of how they are seen, writing their own narrative. My guests on this episode of Wisdom Personified, Conversations with Dudu Msomi, are Mark and Dr. LaTasha Blanton. Mark and Dr. LaTasha Blanton's mission is to expose and showcase South Africa as a luxury destination, but also as a potential to African Americans, which warms my heart to no end. They are the founders of the Real South Africa tour company. Mark and LaTasha, thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having us.
So you guys were born in the US?
Yes.
Can you just tell me a bit about your childhood? Do you have siblings? What did you do for your pastimes?
Wow. Okay. Yes. I was born in Augusta, Georgia, but I was raised in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I do have siblings. I have one older brother, he's about 10 years older than me. I have an older sister, and then I have another older sister. So they both tell me what to do. And then I have a younger sister who I tell what to do.
Oh, I mean, I just don't have a younger sister. I'm the only one. Yeah. Okay.
So I was born and raised in Virginia. The little town I grew up in is called Rustburg, Rustburg. And I do have siblings. I have an older sister, she's 10 years older, and a brother that's 4 years older, and that's just the three of us.
Yeah.
And for pastimes, I just played with my cousins outside, like from sun up to about sundown. Yeah. So definitely outside most of the day.
Yeah, that life, hey, of playing outside.
We got to watch cartoons on Saturdays.
What did you do for your pastime?
Ooh, I did everything. We played a lot of sports, and we had a nice neighborhood that we lived in, so all the kids were roughly about the same age, and so we played a lot of sports, swam a lot, football, basketball. We didn't have video games back then, so that was pretty much it. We competed against each other, we raced, ran, just did things outside.
Yeah. Creative time, because you created your own joy kind of thing.
A lot of times we created our own games that didn't even exist. Yeah.
That's where the entrepreneur started coming up. But we'll talk about that. So what do you think your unique value proposition is? If you were not here tomorrow, how will the world be poorer?
Well, we do what we can to, leave a legacy behind. And so what we're doing now, we want to connect the African community with the African diaspora as well. I think if they could, look at what we're doing and just kind of continue to push the narrative. And if that doesn't happen, I would feel that would be a pity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we are.
No, we totally agree on that statement. I mean, for the most part, I think that they would just need to realize that we've laid a path, and to just follow. If they follow it, even if we're not here, they should be fine.
You started. Yeah. So you are the founders of the Real South Africa tour company.
Correct.
Which is part of what also intrigued me when I came across you guys. What does your company do, and why did you name it the Real South Africa?
Okay, well, let me start with the second half. Why we named it the Real South Africa, because being in the U.S., we don't even hear much about Africa, positively, let alone South Africa. It's so far away. So all content, all things that we hear from the U.S. perspective is just Africa. So
it's like we're one country.
Yeah, it's just Africa. So if it's happening in Northern Africa, it's happening
in Southern Africa.
Yeah, in Southern Africa. And so we decided, since we was fortunate enough to come here during World Cup 2010, at least I was, and I saw an Africa that I didn't even know existed. And so I wanted to let people in the diaspora primarily know that, what we're showing them is what we see every day. And what's real to us, we want it to be real to them. So ultimately, I just named it The Real South Africa. And I think if people have really, they really like that title. Mm-hmm.
I liked it because when I also follow your videos,
Okay.
it's like, and we had to leave it to people from outside to really expose who we are, because we are not really getting a strong enough voice or the confident voice to say, no, the images you have of us are not all true. But yes, I love that name completely. So you both started your first business a year after you were married.
Not even a full year, actually. But
Wow. What is the most challenging part of working with a spouse? Can you share wisdom on how you ensure that the business relationship does not adversely affect your marriage?
When we first started the business, I'll just say that it wasn't a situation where we were like, oh, we're going to start a business. It was a situation where he saw my frustration and the position that I had as a director. And he basically was like, you can do this and I will support you. So we already knew what my strengths were. We knew what his were, and we just worked in that pattern. It doesn't mean that we don't have disagreements, but we definitely know who is good at what, and that's how we make it work. When it comes to separating it from our marriage, there is some spillover, but I do know that we make time to, like, we don't work all day. We definitely try to set boundaries for when we're going to work, when we're not going to work, and we make sure that we make things fun and that we do spend actual time together, even if it's just doing nothing. We make sure that we aren't always consumed with it, because we know what that looks like. We know how it made us feel. So we try to stay away from that.
This appreciation of other people's strength, that is significant, isn't it?
No, we're very much aware. Yeah. Very much aware.
And there's certain things that she do better than I do, and then vice versa. And so when things come to me that I know that she's better at, I just automatically punt it to her. She can handle it better than me, which lowers our stress. Then so we can continue in our marriage at the same time. And it truly works. Yeah. So
I think it's also respect, isn't it? Because some people have an issue around accepting that person has the strength.
He's not significantly older, but he is older.
Yeah.
So I do have to respect that first. And there are a lot of things that even as someone that's younger than him, I have to respect that he's, no matter what, he has lived longer than me. So there's just gonna be some things that he's just gonna know. So even if I'm working within my strength and I hit a pothole, I'm like, hey, and just get his thoughts, and then I can work out the rest. But I do lean on him heavily for a lot of things because he has lived longer.
Yeah.
But and just to add to that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even what we're doing now, I had to set the parameters. This is what we're doing. We want to bring what we see to the diaspora, because we can honestly say we don't see it. We don't see it. We would never see it. Between getting past all the mainstream media and things that we read. So our main goal is to, kind of change the narrative a little bit, but also be, on the action front, being able to actually provide, tourism to South Africa based off what we want to do. Yes. And which is a little different than the norm, but we do it. And so we got to balance that as well, because there are some people that are calling, we're asking for one thing, and then they might be calling me asking for something else, and then we got to make a determination, okay, what works, even if they think it's in their best interest. We're like, no, you probably need to do this. And then they get here and they're like, oh, now I see what you're saying.
Because you have a perspective now that's internal. Yeah. As I was saying earlier, part of why we're having this conversation is, for myself, I've just never understood why our ties are not stronger. And so it was really a soul reaction when I saw you and your videos, because it's like, when we all succeed, 100%. Literally.
Yes.
So, which is why growing up, we drew strength from the images of African Americans, even if they were limited, because we could see that being an African, you can. These are people, and if they can do that, it means that even though I'm hearing that I can't do that, I know I can.
Yeah.
So for me, it's important for us on this continent to be a representation that African Americans in the diaspora can be proud of, so that they can own. Because I think sometimes you don't walk as tall because the images of the people you come from is one that you can't be proud of. So I feel it's my mission that I'm not just living for me, but for the people that I've never met who are on the other side. Because if they feel proud, they walk taller. But anyway, we digress. What is the best advice you have ever received whilst living in South Africa? What did it say? From whom?
Okay. The easy answer is I've gotten a lot of good advice from a lot of people here in South Africa. People that are older than me who've sat me down. I've sat at tables where there was a young person who's 14, 15 years old who are very passionate about their country and where it's going, and was telling me about the history, things I did not know, because they don't teach us Black history in America too much anyway, let alone African history, let alone South African history, for one. But one of the people that really inspired me was, here we are, it's our second time here in South Africa. We go to Cape Town, and we was like, we didn't even tell anyone. We just left. We went to Cape Town, and we rented a flat. Fortunately, it was in Clifton.
Yeah.
We didn't know
Chose okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't
we had
could
no
afford.
clue. It worked out for us because we owned our business there as well, and we happened to be going through the airport, and we ran into another African American. His name is Tim, and he says to me, "Hey, let's meet up when you get to Cape Town. I'm coming to Cape Town too." So we get to Cape Town, and he says, "So why are you here?" Because keep in mind, he's been here much longer than us. Why are you here? And I was like, "Well, we just coming to see how this thing goes, and see if we might want to move here."
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, Mark. Well, an African American with some means can do well here in South Africa." And I didn't know what that meant initially, but I took it. But as I moved forward, I started noticing what he was saying. So I was a little bit more bold in my steps. I was more deliberate with what we're doing, and that's why we're doing what we're doing in this tourism space, because we feel that I'm an African American with some means, so I can do some things.
With the exchange rate, yes, you don't do too badly. That's for sure.
It hasn't always been where it is right now, but
I remember when it was 9-1, which wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad even then.
But now it's really it's just much favorable. It is. It is.
Yeah. Well, that was good advice. Thank you for being around. What is the most detrimental stereotype about people of African descent anywhere in the world that you heard or observed that you believe has kept them from experiencing their best lives? What wisdom can you share about how they can overcome the shackles of the stereotype?
Okay, well, we're sharing wisdom. And that's what we're doing, which is good. I've been fortunate because in my previous lives, I feel like I'm in my fourth life at this point. And I've traveled a lot of the world, between being in the U.S. military for 13 years, being U.S. Secret Service for 10. I go where presidents go, vice presidents go. That's where I go. So I've been to a lot of countries, and I think the biggest stereotype that I've experienced and witnessed is that, that Black people are lazy, which include Africans, African Americans, anybody of color that we're lazy, and I've found and I've heard it, but then at the same time I haven't experienced that in America for the most part, and I definitely haven't experienced it here. I see a lot of motivated South Africans that are getting it done, and actually it even inspires me to sometimes say, let me get up and let me do a little bit more to to engage in that struggle.
Yeah. Agree?
We definitely agree on that statement. I think that we are told beyond the fact that Black people are lazy, that we don't like each other, that we're not the same. Definitely keeping a little bit of tension so that if I see you, I'm going to automatically look down on you or expect you to look up to me, or for me to think I got to teach you things that when in fact, what I found here is that South Africans or Africans in general, to me, are extremely intelligent people. If you shut your mouth as the ugly, arrogant American, you actually will learn a lot. So that stereotype of believing that, Africans are beneath us or they don't like us has definitely kept a lot of people from coming. And on top of that, I mean, there's lots of reasons that keeps them from coming, because they're told a lot of the times that, racism is so bad here. And they're like, why would I want to go to Africa or South Africa if I'm just going to experience what I experience here at home? And they really, a lot of them still believe that like apartheid is so practiced. So having to overcome those things is what we try to do in our videos, and just kind of say, look, it's definitely a rainbow nation. It's literally a melting pot. There's so many cultures here. Just come get in where you fit in. Come listen. And then when they start to open their mind, I think that they will actually remove those shackles and be free to actually see the opportunity and the possibilities here in the country.
Yeah. I remember I started my career in advertising, but in the late 90s, after our liberation, some African Americans did come through, especially with the consulting firms. And there was that arrogance of...
I believe it.
So a number of them were kind of shocked that they were actually middle-class Africans, educated, we run businesses, even though we had apartheid, but we still had a whole class structure and educated people, even working class people. It doesn't mean just because you're working class, you're stupid. So a number of them will kind of experience a bit of a culture shock because they thought they were coming to teach us stuff. And the ones that came with that attitude really returned quickly and didn't enjoy their time here. But I think people who kind of understood, okay, these are human beings, whatever I've been told is not true, they kind of, enjoyed it. Because in any society, you'll find people that are clued up but not clued up, middle class, know. But also the images, I mean, even where we're at, most people don't understand that we can live like this and be African. And,
are you even in South Africa?
Which is, isn't it terrible when they, especially with Cape Town, they'll say, oh, Cape Town is not the real Africa, or South Africa is not the real Africa. But I mean, this is, the diversity. But
that's the beautiful part about the country. It is diverse. You literally can get everything here. Every type of weather, depending on where you are. And that's what I love about it, because I don't need to go anywhere. If I can just travel this country and see it, I'm good.
Yeah, so now, and mountains.
I know.
And culture.
Yeah.
True African culture.
Yeah. What was the vision you had for your life? Looking at the life you have lived and are still living, has what you envisioned happened? What is better than you could have imagined? And what in your life has fallen short of your young aspirations?
My life has been pretty sorted overall. I've done so many things. It's not like I started doing one thing and then I'm at retirement age and I've just completed it and I had this one life. I think that we've done a lot. Like, for example, a lot of people didn't know back then, but in 2015, 2016, we came here multiple times, and Tasha, she's into the Barbie dolls, and in America, it was a big thing. I mean, my older sisters who now, approaching 60, played with Barbie dolls, and it gave them a very positive image. And they generally played with black Barbie dolls because Barbie had everything.
There are black Barbie dolls
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so one of the things we were able to do, we couldn't find them here in 2015. We couldn't find them. So I ended up approaching the toy companies here. The toy companies to get everything, to get them here. And so we actually opened a store in Southgate that when you walked in, all you saw was black Barbies. And it was funny because the South Africans would come in, the little girls were so fascinated, and they're like, are these real Barbies? Because they only saw Barbie as being white.
Yes.
And so forth. So that's just one of many things that I've been able to do. So I think as far as my life is concerned, my mother used to always say, help our people. And so I've been doing that throughout my life. And so that's been my whole goal. So, and I haven't fell short yet.
Still going.
Still going.
Yeah.
As far as like how my life is now compared to what I thought it was going to be, the truth of the matter is I honestly thought that I would be still practicing, physical therapy. But when we saw our opportunities here in South Africa, it literally changed what I actually wanted my life to look like. And I'm happy now that I actually get to live the life that I thought I was supposed to have in the U.S. Because what I know for sure is they tell you in the U.S. if you check all these blocks, you can have this type of life. Well, I checked all those blocks. And when I got to the end of checking those blocks and I looked at my life, it wasn't what they told me it was supposed to be. So when I came here and I was like, this is the life that I thought I was supposed to have after checking all those blocks. So living here literally is like what I thought my life was supposed to be. I just thought it was going to be on that side, but it happens to be here. And I accepted that if I'm going to live the life that I truly aspire to have, it has to be here in South Africa.
Interesting, because we all grew up on the American dream. And I read a book it was when I started working, late 90s, early 2000s. And, but it was talking about the decimation of the middle class, even then in America, and a different perspective. So most of my life, I didn't know that there's an American dream, because from reading, I knew there wasn't the way it was portrayed. And I always find it so sad for people who get shattered by that, because I suppose it's also about what we're exposed to. And I used to say, we can do the same in South Africa. Get people to believe that it is possible. And that's what makes America great, because you can believe it's possible.
True.
And that's all you need to energize. The fact that most people may not ever experience it, but we strive towards it. With us, we get very, South Africans quickly comfortable.
Yeah.
We are very comfortable.
You go quick to the soft life.
Yeah, I found myself getting very comfortable here in South Africa, and sometimes I had to motivate myself and remember. And the remembrance is the phone calls that we get from our, potential travelers that are trying to say, "Hey, I need to do something else," or I just want to, bring my wife on a vacation. So then I gotta motivate to get back up.
You can't just
because here you could just the
when
weather's
you're
good most of the time.
You can be very comfortable.
Very comfortable here in South Africa.
Can you explain the Karen phenomenon to those that don't know what it is? And have you experienced it in South Africa? And what was the context?
I think the best way to explain the Karen phenomenon is that what we know for sure as Americans is that we Black people are the minority. And the one person that knows that they have power that they misuse is a white woman. So unfortunately, the Karen phenomenon is simply a Caucasian woman that just decides she wants to put her 2 cents into something that's really not her business, and then she escalates it to a level where she knows the police is going to come, and then at this point the police that are going to show up are going to be probably other Caucasian cops. So now no matter what happens, she's going to be believed, and you can use that to literally torment other people simply because you can, because all you have to do is just say as a white woman, and you're immediately believed. And that's kind of where the Karen phenomenon comes from. You can just say, and they believe.
Energy that has to drive somebody to want somebody to be in an unfortunate situation.
Well, they do it to children. They don't care if they're 7 or 77. They have that power, and it's misused.
Yeah, and it's real. It's
very real.
It's extremely real. Yeah.
Have you experienced it in South Africa?
No, I haven't experienced it at all. It's actually been pretty comforting being here, because some of the we have people that come here as tourists, and they ultimately are still on guard. And then they get here and they're like, I don't have to be on guard anymore. They realize it themselves. We tell them, and then we're not on guard at all. I'm literally not on guard because I don't expect it. I don't see it. I don't have it. I don't really hear it too much in conversations. However, I do remember those conversations when we were in the U.S. And we have those in the U.S. that are still experiencing it and would say, hey, yeah, this happened to me the other day. And it's very interesting, but nonetheless, I haven't experienced it here.
No,
Thank
definitely
goodness.
not here.
Thank goodness.
Everybody here is accepting, which I can appreciate.
Yes. What is the one decision you wish you had never made in life, and why?
I'm happy with all my decisions. No, because I see the good in all of the decisions that I've made, whether it be one that came at an unfortunate expense. I just learned from those things, so I don't really have a decision that I wish I had not made.
Yeah. Everything is a learning process.
But I had to learn that as a young person. So you don't have time to have a pity party.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the solution? And you keep it moving. So yeah.
I think all those things. It's a great question. I really like it because I think about, okay, here I am. I'm joining the U.S. Army, and then a year and a half later, I'm in a combat zone. Nobody would choose that, and so it was a choice that I made. And then, but as the years went on, I've learned a lot from that time. I still reference the things that happened there, and it's probably helping me be here. So I've probably at a time I probably regretted some decisions, but as time went on, I'm looking how it all bared out.
Yes.
As my dad used to say, the pendulum swings the other way, and things I draw from that, and it works. So I don't really fully regret some things. Some things I wish didn't happen, like going to that desert and doing what I had to do. But at the end of the day, it's formed who I am today, and that's why I can do what I do.
I don't know if I should ask this question.
Why?
But as an African American, to join the army, how does that make you feel? Because I always watch that and I think a place that does not seem to embrace you wholeheartedly and you go out and you fight for them. How does that make you feel?
Well, it's funny. That's a multi-pronged question. There was a time joining the military was a proud thing that you do to say, our early forefathers were like, okay, I'm a full-fledged American if I go to join the military and possibly go to war. So when you come back, you're like, okay, I can stand right along with everyone else. Well, that never happened. And then as time went on, it turned into my granddad was in the military. So it turns into a proud thing. So yes, you do, have your priorities. It could be I'm fighting for America, or it could be, hey, this is a family tradition, and they compete with each other. For me, it was a family tradition. That's kind of what we did, and we all are proud of the fact that we actually served, and we can look at each other. Like, for example, my father served in Vietnam, and he used to tell me all these stories, and I really couldn't connect with them. And then when I went to what we call Desert Storm, when I came back home, I literally looked at him, and I looked at him completely different. And we can share our stories, and now I understood his stories. So it was another way for us to bond as well.
Okay, so you find your own way of connecting
Correct.
with it. Okay. I've always wondered about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can sleep better now. What have you observed about the entrepreneurial spirit in South Africa? What wisdom can you share about how the unemployment rate can be reduced through entrepreneurship?
It's funny you say that. I believe for us, I hear South Africans saying they're looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I hear that in America, but we stay on the job front. We're constantly looking for jobs. Not saying that we don't find them, because we do. The entrepreneurial ladder is a hard rung to get to in the U.S. We were able to achieve it, and it was hard to maintain those whole 10 years that we did that there. In South Africa, I see most people are entrepreneurial. Like most people that we talk to, even if it's a small business, or even if they work for, as y'all say, corporate, they're looking to start their own stuff. So I find that most South Africans and Africans in general are more entrepreneurial than we will ever be. And I don't know, it's because of access, because in the U.S. it's very difficult to get access. Here, I don't really know, but I will say that I think that South Africans are more entrepreneurial, and as far as the unemployment rate, I mean, I think it's a global issue with Black people in general, regardless of where you find them. The quicker and the sooner that we start working together, we're going to be able to solve, these issues.
Yeah.
But locally, I would say entrepreneurship is one of many tools that people can take advantage of, and so forth. But again, this is a young democracy. It's going to take a little bit, probably more time than what we need. But ultimately, I think it will be solved.
Yeah, you almost like, in my mind, I foresee a world where the Africans and the diaspora deliberately look at the money circulating amongst themselves first before we take it to other groups, because it hasn't benefited us.
Correct.
So with technology now, thank goodness now that we're embracing even online stuff.
Yes.
Before COVID, we were not. That there is actually no reason why, when you're looking, especially in the knowledge industry, when you're looking for skills or services, why we're not looking at each other's markets. I've never understood that, but this is why I'm excited about chatting to you guys,
Yes.
because these are thoughts I've always had of why we're not trading with each other, why we're not risking on each other. So I hope we start a movement of doing that.
Yeah, I think the movement is happening from what we see.
Yeah.
Because we do, like I said, we do our videos, and even if we're not talking about business in particular or trading or anything like, getting into the weeds of it, people are asking us those questions. Like, can I do that over here in Africa, in South Africa? Because they know that for the most part, as I used to say, then on that side in the U.S., they're not going to finance their demise. So as long as they can keep you in the working class,
Yeah.
it really helps the economy.
Yes.
When you come out the working class, maybe you're trading with Africa, you kind of are going against the grain, which is that's what we need to do. So people
Yeah.
are highly interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just need to, and to be honest with you, from my perspective, and I say that from my perspective, I think Africa needs to be more receptive to those people who are looking to come here and invest, buy homes, come here as tourists, spend money, those types of things. They need to open it up like all the way, and people will come.
Yeah. Instead of seeing it as competition.
100%.
Yeah, we're not competition. I will also say, I like what Ghana did. I think if South Africa did something very similar, just, say, hey, because I watched the State of the Nation's address, and that was one of the motivations for us to, ramp up our tourism, because he would talk about one thing, probably the second or third item was tourism. And I'm like, I could do that.
Yes.
Because, we're pretty significant on our side. I can bring more people. And I understand from talking to SA Tourism that for every person that comes, that's creating a job.
It does.
Yeah, and for every time a person gets off that plane, and that's why TBCSA and all those agencies track those things.
Yes.
So they can see, how much money they
Because
can
we
spend.
have a huge target, 21 million visitors that we need to get in by 2030? So we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
We're going to do our part. Don't you worry about it.
We're going to do what we
Thank
can.
goodness. Okay, we are about to wrap up. On your bucket list, what's still there to do?
Travel more of this country. Definitely
Like the
wanna-
little towns. Do you go to the
I
little
just,
towns?
well, what I really want to do is just do what we did before, but I want to go further. Just get in the car and just be gone for like 2 weeks and just
Yeah.
want to do that.
I'm supposed to do that in September, but I only now have 2 weeks instead of the month that I wanted.
Okay.
So I'm going to fly into Cape Town and then drive up the coast.
There you go.
Towards George
Yeah, I
and
love
all
it.
that.
And so I love the little towns. I usually plan my trips so that every 2.5 hours I stop.
Yeah.
And
No
so
stress.
No stress.
those are little towns most of us just pass. So I love stopping like that.
wanna walk
And what wisdom would you like to leave us with as we wrap up? What is the one thing you would like to share with our audience?
I would say to South Africans, You are smart, you're worthy, you have all the tools you need. Just be patient with yourself, be patient with your new democracy. Understand that, we're not your litmus test for what success looks like, that we're not your competition either, and that if you can see value in how hard we had to fight to get to where you got in 25 years, understand that we're still on the same path and we can walk it together. That would be what I would say.
I would say that it would be incredible, and I'm smiling, it'd be incredible to see a literal ant trail of all those in the diaspora collaborating, doing things. I mean, like we see it in music. We definitely see it in film. I think sometimes people don't even realize, especially in the U.S., that those actors and actresses that are on that screen are South African or African from some other country. They don't even realize it because they just don't realize it.
They assimilate well.
Yeah, very well. And I'm like, but these are the same people that you are looking at over here and say, well, I don't want to mess with those people. That needs to disappear immediately, and then we start working together, because when Black people are elevated in the world eyes, then it makes it better for everyone.
Yeah.
If I travel as a Black person to South America, and they know that Black people are on a pedestal, that makes it better for me, and that's directly and indirectly to people who I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what that would be like the best.
Yes, that is my mission as well. There's a talk I had to give. The headquarters are in California, and without the Zoom world, that opportunity would not have happened. So to have an African female give advice about whatever, and I was like, this is what my mother could not dream about. This generation is starting. It can only get better for the next generation, where if you're looking for strategic help, if you're looking for leadership advice, you speak to an African female.
Yes.
That it's not always white males. That is my dream, because I think we are amazing, and the wisdom that we have to share. Not that African American men are not at our level as African American females and African females.
No, women are going to lead the world.
But anyway,
that's what I believe. Anyway.
But it really, and it's going to be good for all of us. As Madiba used to say, when you free the Black race, you free the white race as well, because then racism gets us all in a bondage. Yeah. And if we can understand that, the energy we take to hate each other and to keep each other down, you can use that energy to make this world so much better. But hey, do you understand why we're having this conversation? I hope you are feeling inspired. You may not always understand the nuances of these conversations and the emotional value they are for the people in this particular episode, Africans and people from African descent. But just be patient with us. Go on the journey. The future for Africans and African Americans from the diaspora is what they make it. We are definitely rewriting history for the pride and benefit for the generations to come. I hope you have found our conversation reflective. Thank you for making time for this episode of Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Click on the bell notification to be informed when our next episode is available. Wisdom Personified Conversations with Dudu Msomi is also now available on Facebook Watch, Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Enjoy the wisdom journey.